The great city of Zithera Prime shone like 1,000 stars on the horizon. Its towers curved upward, made of crystal metal that glowed softly in shades of blue and silver. Flying ships crossed the skies, carrying travelers from dozens of different worlds. It was the center of the Zitheran Empire, a proud civilization known for its power and beauty. Among the endless crowd of aliens walking through the main plaza, one figure stood out, a human. His name was Ethan Cole, age 24, Earthborn. He was not tall compared to most Zitherans, and his simple dark uniform looked almost too plain in a world of shining silks and energy armor. But there was something quiet and firm about the way he moved. His steps were steady, his eyes calm. He was a man on a mission. Ethan had come as a representative from Earth to attend the Interstellar Trade Summit, where dozens of species gathered to share knowledge and make alliances. It was the first time Earth had been invited. Humanity was still a young civilization among the stars, just a few decades out of its home system, but it was quickly gaining attention for its creativity, adaptability, and courage. Some respected them. Others laughed at them. The Zitherans in particular thought humans were curious creatures, short-lived, emotional, and impulsive. To them, humans were like children playing with advanced tools, and no one believed that more strongly than Princess Lysera, the 19-year-old royal daughter of Zithera's emperor. That morning, Ethan entered the Hall of Mirrors, the grand chamber where the summit's opening meeting was held. The hall was huge, with floating lights and walls that reflected the stars. Dozens of ambassadors, nobles, and scholars stood around crystal tables, their voices humming like an orchestra of languages. When the human entered, conversations paused. Some stared. Others whispered. A few smiled politely, but many looked curious or amused. Then a voice echoed through the hall, smooth, young, and proud. "So this is the human they sent?" The voice said. "I expected someone taller." The crowd parted slightly and Princess Lysera appeared. She walked with the grace of royalty, her golden skin shimmering faintly under the lights. Her hair was a pale silver, braided with glowing threads. Her eyes, violet and sharp, studied Ethan like a scientist examining a strange bug. Ethan bowed slightly, polite and controlled. "Princess Lysera," he said in calm tone. "It's an honor to be welcomed by the Empire." Her lips curved in a faint smirk. "I did not welcome you. I only came to see if humans truly existed, or if you were a story told by traitors. I see you are real. That's interesting." Ethan kept his composure. "We are as real as you, Princess." Lysera tilted her head. "So short-lived. Your people die before reaching a Zitheran's childhood, and yet you walk here as diplomats. How strange. Perhaps the council wanted some amusement today." A soft laugh spread among the alien nobles. Some covered their mouths. Others smirked openly. Ethan said nothing. She leaned closer, curious. "Tell me, human, does your kind always look so plain? Or did Earth run out of color before you left your planet?" Her tone was sharp, meant to sting. But Ethan didn't show anger. He looked at her for a moment, his expression unreadable, then turned slightly away. The room went silent. He adjusted the small Earth insignia on his sleeve, bowed once again, not out of fear but respect, and then walked away without a single word. The crowd murmured in confusion. No one had ever walked away from a Zitheran royal, especially not during a public insult, but Ethan didn't rush. He moved calmly as if her words were dust blown past him. Lysera blinked, momentarily unsure. Her smirk faded. She watched him leave through the grand doors, his steps quiet but firm. For some reason she couldn't explain, his silence felt heavier than any insult she had ever received. Outside, the warm golden sky of Zithera glowed above the city. Ethan stepped into the plaza, breathing deeply. The air smelled faintly of crystal and ozone. He looked around at the alien crowd and smiled faintly. He was used to this, used to being underestimated. On Earth, he had been a peacekeeper, a soldier trained for difficult negotiations. He knew that anger only gave power to those who insulted you. Silence, on the other hand, could shake them more deeply. He found a seat near a small fountain of floating water orbs. A young Zitheran attendant approached, nervous. "Sir Human," she said quietly, you just ignored Princess Lysera." "That's dangerous," Ethan gave a small smile. "I didn't ignore her. I heard her words. I just didn't answer them. But she is royal, No one walks away from her. Ethan shrugged. Then maybe it's time someone did. The attendant blinked, unsure whether to laugh or run. You are brave or foolish? Both, Ethan said with a small grin. Usually both. Back inside the hall, Lysera stood in silence while the crowd whispered. One of her advisors, an older noble named Tereth, spoke softly. Your Highness, the human's action may be seen as disrespect. Lysera crossed her arms. He disrespected me by doing nothing? How strange. Usually they beg or apologize. Perhaps, Tereth said carefully, that was his form of power. Lysera frowned. Power, by leaving? Yes, Tereth said. He made no mistake. He gave no reaction. Now everyone speaks of him. Lysera's eyes narrowed. Then he seeks attention. I think not, the advisor replied. He simply refused to play your game. That thought unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. Later that day, in her private chamber overlooking the Silver Sea, Lysera replayed the scene in her mind. The way he stood, calm, straight, unshaken. The way he left without anger or fear. It was not arrogance. It was confidence, a kind she rarely saw even among her own kind. She pressed a button on her holodesk. Find out everything about the human representative from Earth, she ordered her attendant. His history, his purpose, his rank, everything. As you command, Princess. When the attendant left, Lysera stared at the glowing city below. Short-lived, she whispered. And yet, he didn't act like someone afraid to waste a moment. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his assigned quarters in the ambassador's wing, a quiet section of the palace complex. The human delegation was small, only 3 people. Ethan, a scientist named Dr. Wren, and a linguist named Mira. Mira met him at the door. What happened? She asked. The news feeds are already showing clips of you walking away from the princess. Ethan sighed. I said nothing worth repeating. That's the problem, Mira said, smiling. You didn't say anything, and now everyone's talking about it. Dr. Wren chuckled from his desk. I told you humans have a talent for chaos without trying. Ethan sat down, rubbing his temples. I didn't come here to start drama. I came to secure trade access for Earth. We need resources, not royal scandals. Mira leaned against the wall. Well, congratulations. You've become the most mysterious man on Zithera. Ethan smiled faintly. Then let's use that mystery to our advantage. That night, far across the shining city, Princess Lysera couldn't sleep. The stars outside her window burned bright, and for the first time in years, she found herself thinking not about power or politics, but about a human who had refused to argue. Why did his silence bother her? Why did she care? She didn't have answers. But she knew one thing: she had to see him again. The next morning, the city awoke with new whispers. The human had become the talk of Zithera. Some said he was rude. Others said he was bold. Many said he had shown silent strength, a phrase now spreading across HoloNet channels. Ethan ignored it all. He spent his morning studying Zitheran customs, learning their technology, preparing his reports. He wasn't here to make enemies or friends. But fate, it seemed, had already decided that things would not stay simple. Because outside his door, waiting with an unreadable expression, stood Princess Lysera herself. The morning sun rose over Zithera Prime, painting the city in shades of gold and silver. The plaza sparkled as floating vehicles glided across the sky, leaving faint trails of light. Inside the palace, Princess Lysera sat in her private chamber, her violet eyes fixed on a small holographic display. It showed images of the human, Ethan Cole, moving through the city, studying, observing, interacting quietly with the locals. She did not understand why she could not stop thinking about him. It was not just that he had ignored her insult, it was how calm, how steady he had been. None of her other guests had ever dared to walk away without reacting. Not even the leaders of hostile worlds. Lysera tapped the screen. Show me everything about him, she said to her attendant, who bowed and started searching through the palace archives. Yes, Princess. Everything recorded about the human delegation from Earth. While her attendant worked, Lysera paced. Her boots made no sound on the polished crystal floor. She remembered his bow, small, respectful, unassuming. She remembered his eyes, calm like deep water, unreadable. He did not fear her. He did not flatter her. He simply existed in his own space, untouched by the power she thought would overwhelm him. That evening she made a decision. She would see him again, Not in public, where he could be careful and polite, but in private, where she could observe him closely. Meanwhile, Ethan was settling into his quarters. He spread a series of reports across a low table, carefully studying Zitharan trade patterns. He knew that Earth's success in the interstellar market depended on understanding the subtle politics of each species present. "Ethan," said Mira, the linguist, stepping in with a cup of warm tea, "you've been at it for hours. Don't you want to rest?" Ethan shook his head. "I can't. We need to understand Zithara before we present our proposals. And I want to make sure we don't make mistakes that could cost Earth an alliance." Mira poured herself a cup. "You never seem worried about what the aliens think of you." "Sometimes it's better to focus on what matters," Ethan replied. "Let them judge. It does not change the facts." She raised an eyebrow. "You mean even if a princess insults you publicly?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Especially then." Outside the human quarters in the shadowed corridors of the palace, Lysera moved silently. She was not alone. Her personal security drones followed, invisible to most eyes, programmed to keep her safe. She was dressed simply, a pale silver tunic without the usual royal adornments. She wanted to be unnoticed. Lysera observed Ethan as he worked. She noted the way he handled the reports carefully, with attention to detail. She saw how he organized his thoughts, how he made connections she had never considered. Curiosity gnawed at her. She could not understand humans, at least not this one human. While most species she knew reacted to insult or praise, Ethan remained steady. Nothing seemed to shake him. The next day, the summit expanded into practical demonstrations, a chance for species to show their technology, skill, or intelligence. Humans were invited to participate, though many doubted what they could contribute. After all, Zitharan technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Ethan approached the demonstration hall with his team. Their setup was simple, a small energy converter they had designed to work with alien power sources. It was modest but efficient and, most importantly, adaptable. A crowd gathered as aliens tested their own devices. Many whispered about the human, clearly expecting him to fail. Lysera watched from above, hidden behind a transparent panel. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes were fixed on him. When Ethan began his demonstration, he moved with calm precision. He analyzed the alien energy field, made small adjustments, and connected his device. It started to work perfectly, converting the energy with minimal waste. The crowd murmured in surprise. Many had expected failure. Lysera's violet eyes widened slightly. She had expected incompetence or clumsiness, yet the human had solved the problem with ease and logic. Not with arrogance, not with loud boasting, just simple intelligence. After the demonstration, aliens approached him with questions, curious how a species so young could succeed where others failed. Ethan answered politely, carefully explaining his methods. He made no claims of superiority. He only spoke the facts and shared his knowledge. Lysera, observing from a distance, felt a strange mix of irritation and admiration. She hated that she felt admiration. She hated that she could not predict him, could not control him. But she could not deny the truth. Humans, this human, were different. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Lysera decided to approach him. She materialized in the demonstration hall, her usual pride carefully hidden. Ethan looked up when she appeared, calm as always. "Human," she said, her tone measured. "You handled that surprisingly well." Ethan nodded politely. "Thank you, Princess. Your species' technology is impressive." Lysera tilted her head. "Impressive, perhaps, but not without flaws. That is why you succeeded, I think. You see what we miss." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes a fresh perspective helps." Her eyes narrowed. "And yet you ignore the social rules. You did not bow to insult me. You did not respond to my words." Ethan's expression remained calm. "I have nothing to gain from arguing. Respect must be earned, not demanded. I treat all words as information. I do not react to insults." Lysera froze. No one had ever spoken to her this way. Her royal education had taught her that words could control, intimidate, or humiliate. Yet here was a human, refusing to be controlled, refusing to be intimidated. Over the next few days, Lysera continued to observe Ethan secretly. She watched him interact with other delegates, always calm, always fair, never swayed by flattery or insult. She saw him help a Zitharan technician repair a damaged drone using only human logic and basic tools. The technician was amazed. But Ethan merely smiled and returned to his work. For the first time in her life, Lysera began to question her assumptions about humans. They were not weak, not short-lived in spirit. They were persistent. They were clever. They were unafraid to act according to principles, even in a world filled with beings far stronger and older than they were. One night, Lysera spoke quietly to her personal AI. "Why does he not fear me? Why does he not bend to my authority?" The AI's voice was calm. "Princess, humans often operate differently from Zitherans. They value reason and personal integrity over hierarchy. His strength lies in what you cannot take from him, self-control." Lysera frowned. "Self-control, yes. But why does it irritate me so?" "Because it is unfamiliar," the AI replied. "And unfamiliar things often provoke strong emotions." She leaned back, thoughtful. "Then I must see him again closely. Perhaps then I can understand this human." Meanwhile, Ethan remained unaware of the intensity of her attention. He focused on his mission, Earth's interests in interstellar trade, and ensuring that humanity was seen as a competent, reliable partner. He moved quietly through the palace halls, meeting with delegates, analyzing data, and preparing proposals. He had noticed Lysera occasionally in the distance, watching, observing, but he treated her like any other delegate. He made no assumptions, and he did not allow curiosity to distract him from his purpose. One evening, Ethan found a group of young Zithran workers struggling to repair a malfunctioning communication device. It was a delicate machine, far more sensitive than Earth's equipment. The workers were frustrated, arguing in a language Ethan only partially understood. Without hesitation, Ethan knelt beside them. He examined the device, his fingers moving with careful precision. Slowly, he adjusted a few connections, recalibrated the energy flow, and the device hummed to life. The Zitharan workers looked at him in amazement. "You fixed it?" one asked. Ethan smiled. "It needed a slightly different approach. That's all." Lysera, hidden behind a corridor, watched silently. Her heart thumped. She had expected him to fail or to act clumsily. Instead, he solved the problem calmly, without seeking recognition, without arrogance. That night, Lysera could not sleep again. She stared at the stars outside her window. The more she observed Ethan, the more confused she became. He was not afraid. He was not arrogant. He did not seek attention, yet he attracted it naturally. She whispered into the darkness, "Who is he really? And why do I care so much about him?" For the first time, Lysera felt a challenge that was not about politics or pride or power. This human, small, short-lived, fragile in body yet strong in mind, was a puzzle she could not solve. And for someone like her, used to controlling everything, that was frustrating.